All right, today we are jumping into one of the shortest, but wow, one of the most intense letters in the entire Bible, the Book of Jude. It's this short, powerful, urgent message about integrity, about discernment, and really what it means to hold on to your faith when it feels like the world is just flooded with convincing deception. And look, Jude wastes absolutely no time. He gets right to it with a central command. He's not just suggesting they believe, he's telling them, he's urging them to earnestly contend for their faith. I mean, this is an active, passionate defense. This isn't a spectator sport, it's a call to get in the game. And that really sets the tone for everything that follows. So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll look at why this letter was even written in the first place. Then, we'll pinpoint the threat Jude was up against. We'll see how he used history to build his case, and then we'll get into his practical advice for building a faith that can actually last. And we'll wrap it up with the one core principle that just ties it all together. Okay, let's get into it. To really feel the intensity of this letter, you first got to understand the guy who wrote it and the crisis that totally changed his plans. So, who was this guy, Jude? Well, this wasn't just some random person. Jude, or Judah in Hebrew, was one of Jesus's own half-brothers. And what's fascinating is that he and his brothers, they didn't believe in Jesus while he was alive. It was only after they saw him resurrected that they became his devoted followers. I mean, think about that. Jude then goes on to become this key leader, writing to people he knows have a deep, deep understanding of the Jewish scriptures. And this is so important. Jude basically says, hey, I wanted to write you this long, thoughtful letter about our shared salvation, but he had to scrap that. He had to drop everything and fire off this short, intense warning because he heard about a crisis that was unfolding. This wasn't a casual newsletter, this was a fire alarm. So what was the fire he was trying to put out? What was this big crisis? Well, the problem wasn't some threat from the outside world. No, the danger was coming from inside their own community. That phrase, crept in unawares, it's honestly chilling, and it feels so incredibly relevant today, doesn't it? The most dangerous ideas, they don't usually show up with a big sign. They just kind of slip into our communities, into our news feeds, looking and sounding totally reasonable at first. This was a hidden threat, and that's what made it so incredibly dangerous. So what were these guys teaching? This slide just nails the distortion. They took this beautiful, incredible idea of God's grace, and they twisted it into what the Message paraphrase calls sheer license. You know, they argued that since God forgives everything, they could do whatever they wanted, especially when it came to money and sex. It's a lie we still hear today, the idea that freedom means you have zero accountability. And this right here, this is Jude's timeless tool for discernment. This is the key. He doesn't get lost in some complicated debate over their talking points. Nope. He just points to their lifestyle, their moral compromises, their behavior. That was the telltale sign. It was the ultimate lie detector, proving that whatever they were saying about God's grace was completely corrupt. How they lived proved what they really believed. Now, to prove his point and show just how serious this threat was, Jude doesn't invent new arguments. He reaches back into their shared history and pulls out this powerful case file of ancient rebels. He kicks things off with a trio of examples all about divine justice. You've got the Israelites in the wilderness, the rebellious angels, and Sodom and Gomorrah. And the message across all three is crystal clear. Ideas have consequences, and rebelling against God's good design, well, it always follows the same destructive pattern. And his second trio of examples, man, this one hits even harder. It's all about rebels whose actions ended up corrupting everyone around them. You've got Cain, Balaam, and Korah. These stories show that corrupt leaders and false ideas, they don't just self-destruct, they create this ripple effect of damage that takes a whole lot of other people down with them. Now, right about now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, 1 Enoch? Why is Jude quoting from books that aren't in my Old Testament? And that's a great question, and Jude had a really good reason. We just have to remember the context here. Back in the first century, books like 1 Enoch were super popular. They were widely read and respected. They were part of the biblical tradition, even if they weren't official scripture. Jude was a smart communicator. He was using stories and warnings that he knew would hit home with his audience. He was speaking their language. Then Jude just unleashes this storm of powerful metaphors. And these aren't just clever insults, they're like diagnostic tools. Think about it. A message that looks promising but offers no real substance? Yeah, that's clouds without water. A leader who promises a great future but is totally rootless and destructive? That's a fruitless, twice-dead tree. These images just perfectly capture the empty, chaotic nature of these teachers. So, after all that intense warning, what's the solution? Jude doesn't just point out the problem and walk away. He gives clear, positive instructions on how the community can stand firm and build a faith that's actually resilient. And here it is, his 4-step strategy for building a faith that can handle these threats. He says to build your lives on a solid foundation, to pray, to keep yourselves in God's love, and to wait for Jesus' return. It's this active, daily process of building an inner life that can't be so easily shaken by all the noise from the outside. But then he adds this critical layer of nuance. This isn't just about building walls around yourself. In a world where it's so easy to just attack people we disagree with online, Jude calls for something much harder. Have compassion. Try to rescue those who are being deceived, but at the same time, stay absolutely firm against the destructive idea itself. So what is the big takeaway here? What's the lasting principle we can pull from this ancient letter and actually apply to our lives, right here, right now? Well, the whole thing boils down to this. For Jude, God's grace isn't just an idea that you agree with in your head. It's a powerful force that demands a response from your entire life. It's not about what you say you believe. It's about how that belief shapes every single thing you do. This quote from Bible Project just sums it up perfectly. And really, this is Jude's ultimate gift to us, a practical, powerful test for truth in a really confusing world. How a person lives, how a movement acts, that is the clearest indicator of what they truly believe. And this is such an important tool for us today, right? We are saturated with conflicting messages. Whether you're scrolling through your social media feed, watching the news, or trying to figure out a leader, Jude's test cuts right through the noise. Don't just listen to the crafted talking points in the sound bites. Look at the fruit. Does this message produce integrity and humility and love? Or does it produce arrogance, division, and corruption? That's how you begin to tell truth from deception. And that leaves us with a pretty challenging question for our own lives, doesn't it? If someone could only watch our actions, how we spend our time, our money, how we talk to people online and in person, what would they conclude we truly believe? In an age of deception, is our life a clear indicator of the truth? Jude ends his letter not with another warning, but with one of the most beautiful declarations of praise in the entire Bible. It's this final, hopeful reminder that despite all the dangers out there, the ultimate power to keep us from falling, that belongs to God. A really powerful conclusion to a really powerful message.